Hello again, Julie Anderson here with the Brain Lady Speaks podcast. And this one is going to be focused on interaction with animals and animal therapy. We're going to talk a lot about, in particular, dogs and horses, two of my absolute, or I should say the two favorite animals of mine. So stick with us. We've got some fun information to share with you. All right, so let's get with it. How many of you have a furry companion? Now, for those of you who do, you probably can attest to the fact that you just love it when they're excited when you get home. I know for me, we have always had dogs, and we're blessed to have some amazing companions over the years, and we now have some wonderful ones that are no less wonderful than the ones that we've had in the past. And one of the best feelings in the world is when you come home and they're at the gate. These dogs, these pets of ours, are at the gate and their tails are wagging and they're so excited to see us. And we come in and they can hardly contain their excitement. And no matter how stressed you are, you just feel this sense of joy, right? When they're greeting you like that. And I'm also blessed to have 3 horses. We've had our one old mare. She is now 30 years old. And she's a Morgan, so we're hoping for another 5 to 10 years out of her. But she's doing wonderful, and she's like a 1,000-pound dog. Like, she is just my mental health go-to. If I'm not hugging my dog, then I want to go down to the barn and just bury my nose in her neck. We've had her since she was 3 years old. We have her son, who is now 16. He's a cantankerous little fart, but they just bring me so much joy. And I don't even mind being down there doing the daily chores of, shoveling the manure, because has such a positive impact on my mental well-being. And that's what we're going to talk about today. We're just going to kind of touch on some of the reasons why, from a neuroscience point of view, why is this? Why do we get joy from being around animals? Why are we happier when we're around animals? Why are there entire programs that are built around animal therapy, whether it is dogs going into memory care facilities or into hospitals that deal with child illnesses, or the equine therapy that has gotten so popular in the last, a lot of the last couple of decades. We've always known these different reasons, or we've always known that it makes you feel better. What we haven't always been able to pinpoint is the neuroscience. And you know me, that's what I geek out on. So if I'm not geeking out on my animals, I'm geeking out on the brain. And that's what I'm going to try to, bring to you some of that information that we have here to share with you today. So when you talk about some of the statistics, right, just some of the facts and figures that are out there regarding the benefits of animal therapy, or the benefits of animals in our lives, it's pretty significant. Frontiers in Psychology published a paper where they researched. They did an analysis of 597 other papers. And all of these papers had to deal with various different types of animal therapy. Everything from working with children to, working with elderly in elderly care facilities. And they found some very significant things. And you can look that up on their website. It's Frontiers in Psychology. And some of the things that they found, of course, is that it helps to alleviate animal therapy, or having even just not even the therapeutic part of it, an actual therapy system, but just simply having dogs in particular in your life. They're reduced depression symptoms. This was noticed in a lot of memory care facilities, that the interaction with the pets, with the dogs that come in, can effectively reduce and prevent depression. Animal owners tend to have lower rates of depression and anxiety. There was a study that was done on 561 participants, and they found that companion animals significantly reduced owner anxiety. And they did this study after COVID-19, right, when there was a lockdown. And they found, and a lot of the animal shelters and a lot of the breeders will tell you that there was a boom in animal ownership at that time. And they found that they helped those who did have animals were significantly reduced anxiety during this very anxious time period, right? There's another group in 2022, another study that was produced or put out by Hogwood. They incorporated cognitive behavioral therapy principles and found that equine-assisted adaptive riding programs had a significant impact on reducing anxiety in adolescents. Reducing the stress and anxiety, companion animals have a beneficial effect in moderating human stress levels, especially in individuals in high stress working environments. So they produce some of that. And a lot of this information is in that. I'm quoting from that study in Psychologies and Frontiers in Psychology, and then in Community Neuroservices. Also, those are some of the references that I am pulling this information from. There's additional research that indicates that indirect exposure to companion animals, even this was so interesting when I read this, indirect. So in other words, just simply viewing images and videos would mitigate stress, would lower stress levels. Specifically, they observed a reduction in stress levels among participants who watched companion animal videos before undertaking stressful tasks. Isn't that fascinating? Just watching it, right, changes the neurochemistry. They found that viewing animals in a VR with the VR head things while doing or after very highly stressful, highly stressful activities, it induced relaxation and lowered the lowered cortisol in the body. So pets such as dogs and cats, horses, they do have a significant impact. Even they did scans of the brain of individuals when they were petting cats and noticed differences in the brains. So some of the things that they noticed was increased prefrontal cortex activity. Now, when they did, we know I've talked a lot about the PFC, the prefrontal cortex, as well as the amygdala. We've talked about the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system. And some of the activities that actually, either with fMRIs or EEGs, different things that would read the electrical activity in the brain, they would find that interaction with animals, with pets, actually activates the prefrontal cortex, especially as it's registering and processing the cognitive emotions, right? Actually paying attention to your emotions, it activates that. Hospitals who use animal-assisted therapy for patients who are going through stressful treatments like oncology cancer treatments. Then there was a study that was put out in the January 2015 Journal of Community and Supportive Oncology, showed that in this case, it was therapy dogs. They affected the well-being of cancer patients who underwent radiation therapy and chemotherapy. The patients received daily 15 to 20 minutes animal visits for 6 weeks. And afterwards, they reported noticeable increase in their emotional well-being. So a lot of this is coming from when they are examining the different regions in the brain, specifically the prefrontal cortex or the frontal cortex. And when they compared that neural activity when patients were, like I said, petting the cat, they found that led to a higher activation in the inferior frontal gyrus, so up here, and more positive emotions were displayed in the individuals. Frontal lobe activation is vital for cognitive control, emotional control. Remember, the understanding consequences of your actions, understanding what you're feeling, modulating all of that. A lot of that is taking place in that frontal cortex of the brain. And so when you are able to do any activity that raises that, it's a good thing. It's a positive thing. And individuals who have emotional disorders or who are under a lot of stress, they have low activity up there. So when you can do things that can activate that, especially when you're able to do them in a natural way. We're not talking about pharmaceuticals. Mind you, again, like I say on all of my podcasts, if you are under any kind of therapy, I am not telling you to drop your therapy or stop taking your pills. These are all natural ways that you can add value to therapy that you are already under, right? That's what we want. That's what we want to do, is we want to just make your life easier, less stressful. And if something as simple as holding an animal, petting an animal, smelling an animal is going to shift that neurochemistry, then that's what we want, right? Those are the things that we want to see. We want to see happen. So we have the brain activity, right, that shifts. We also see an activity in neurochemistry shifts, right? One of the things that is most noticeable is oxytocin. Now, if you've listened to me for very long, you've heard me talk about how things that we say, body language, different things that we do, words that we use can produce oxytocin. And oxytocin is a neurohormone, so a neurochemical that plays an essential role in bonding, in emotional connecting with other things and other people. It's the main hormone that it just floods the brain when a new mother breastfeeds her new baby. Right? It gives that bond, and quite frankly allows her to do superhuman things in the first couple years of life, right? Because of this oxytocin flush. And they have found that this same oxytocin flush can be achieved from interaction with companion animals, right? With interaction with, whether it's your dogs, your cats, your horses, whatever it is that you have. It can even happen with fish. I've even seen studies where it happens with fish. My son had a fish that used to respond to it and to him. And he actually, it wasn't just that they respond when they fed it. It actually like he felt he could, interact with the fish the same way that you and I would interact with a dog or a cat. So it's very interesting. It's animals as a whole. A lot of the studies have been done on dogs and horses. When oxytocin is high, it relieves things like anxiety, depression, and stress. And when you have that higher oxytocin level, cortisol levels tend to reduce as well. And we know that cortisol is basically considered the stress hormone. So they're finding that these findings are suggesting that oxytocin could affect physiological health by modulating the other hormones that we don't want that much of. Cortisol has its place, but we definitely have way too much cortisol. The average person does. And oxytocin creates those social bonds. It creates that bond. And if you have a lot of oxytocin flooded in your head because of an animal, then the humans that are in your presence at that time are going to benefit from that as well. So this interaction with animals definitely stimulates human oxytocin. And they found it stimulates it in the dogs too, in the animals too. One of the things that is very interesting about dogs in particular is their high level of mirror neurons. Now, mirror neurons are these things in our brain that give us the ability to empathize with other individuals, with other human beings, or even with animals, right? It's the reason why if I were to yawn a lot, you would probably yawn. And if I walked up to you and smiled, you would almost instantly have a return smile. You might not know why you were smiling, right? But you would. It's a mirror neuron. You mirror what you see. Dogs will have that same capacity because they have a high level of mirror neurons in their brains. This is one of the reasons why they make such great companion animals, or emotional support animals, is because they will mirror or match the emotions or feel the emotions of their human that they are interacting with. Now, I haven't read studies. I should actually look this up. I haven't read studies on mirror neurons in horses, but I do know that equine therapy, horses are so incredibly intuitive in every single shift and movement of you as a person. And they're very intuitive as well emotions. Their heart rate will mirror yours oftentimes and can calm you. Or if you are a rider, if you are an equestrian, you know, if you are tense and you are tight and you are anxious on the back of a horse, that horse is going to mirror you. So the key is having those particular horses that have the ability to do the opposite, to cause you to mirror them and to calm you because they're a calm horse. That's the beauty of our old mare, right? She is just amazing that way. And she has the ability to calm people around her and has always had that ability. She's that special of a horse. Okay. So we know that it raises the oxytocin and it reduces that cortisol, as I said. And cortisol is also something that really is connected to the HPA axis, so that hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, right, that responds to stressors, to psychological stress. So when cortisol concentrations are too high, then it activates that system, and of course activates the sympathetic nervous system, and then you have all of this physical and psychological health kind of dropped. So what we want to do is we want to shift that. And a good way to do that is with animals, right? Being able to be around animals will help to reduce that, bring down the cortisol, bring down the sympathetic nervous system, and raise the parasympathetic nervous system. And this is why canine therapy is so calming to the limbic system. It can bring, and it's in using with the individuals who suffer from PTSD. Right? It's so effective because they can sense the person going into, or even autistic children who will go into that neurological like anxiety where they're almost uncontrollable. Dogs can calm them and have been trained to literally put their paws on the individual and bring them down, right? Get them out of that disassociative state and bring them down into the now, into the present. And part of that is the touch, right? With that touch that the dogs do, it's non-threatening. Then when the person responds and touches the dog, it compounds that positive effect that takes place. And they then can smell. I mentioned smelling my horse earlier. There's just something about if you're an equestrian, if you're an equestrian, put in the comments, preach it, right? Tell me that you understand this, because some people will not understand this, but there is something about just burying your nose in the neck, in the neck of a horse, then smelling that wonderful, I don't know, horse sweat and dirt, I guess. But it is a powerful de-stressor, right? And with horses, right, they have this way to interact with you in a very calming way. It also is calming just the process of caring for them. Like literally the rhythm of riding a horse, the balance, that activates the cerebellum in the brain. It activates the frontal lobe in the brain. So it activates these regions of the brain that are not connected to the limbic system, that are outside of the limbic system, and therefore are able, actually, technically the cerebellum is connected to the limbic system. The whole brain's connected. Anyways, the point I'm trying to make is it calms that limbic, right? And it activates other regions. Even just the rhythm of brushing the horse, of caring for the horse, of hearing the horse sounds, they've found that all of those things have a positive impact on the brain chemistry. So we're not only seeing just the activation in higher regions of the brain, but we're seeing that shift in brain chemistry. So what is the point of this podcast? You're like, okay, Julie, that's a lot of interesting information. Thank you very much. But what am I supposed to do if I don't have a dog or cat? Well, if you have the ability to have an animal, then there's a huge benefit to having that. I, of course, will always suggest, because I am an animal rights advocate to some extent, I really want every dog to have a good home, every cat to have a good home, every horse to be cared for adequately, every fish to be cared for, right? But make sure that you have the circumstances and you have the bandwidth to care for an animal. Animals are a responsibility, and they rely, because we've taken them out of the wild and we put them in captivity. I'm not saying that's a bad thing at all. It's very positive on many levels, and many animals love humans. You, the thing is that they're relying on you for food, for water, and for daily care. So you have to make sure that you have the circumstances to care for an animal before you go get them. This was a problem. I mentioned that there was so many positive benefits to those who got animals, especially dogs, during COVID. The problem was when those individuals went back to work, they now had an animal that was conditioned to having their human at home full time, and now they were left alone. And this wound up with a lot of problems. There were a lot of animals that were being voluntarily given into shelters because their humans were no longer at home to care for them. So make sure that it is, before you jump into animal ownership, make sure that you have the ability to care for an animal, and then research the type of animal you're going to get. There are certain animals, or certain, say, dogs, for example. There are certain dogs that are great lap dogs, and there are certain dogs that are not great lap dogs. There are certain dogs that are really good at your side all the time companions, great service dogs, and then there are other dogs that are not necessarily great service dogs. My favorite breed of dogs are border collies. They're highly intelligent, but they're also very high energy. And I would not ever suggest that you have a border collie if you live in an apartment. You have to have a space that, is available for them to get out and move and have the activity that that particular breed needs. So research the breed. Same thing with cats, right? Research the breed if you're going to get animal ownership. Now, you don't have to, maybe you want to benefit from animal therapy, benefit from, say, equine therapy without having to get a horse because you don't have the ability to get a horse. There are a lot of, pretty sure that within an hour of where you live, you're probably going to be able to find a stable that offers equine therapy. So look into that. There's also, if there isn't something close to you, I personally know of individuals that have ranches that do equine therapy at their ranches. They do full week enriching activities where you can go spend the entire week there and do equine therapy. And of course, you can repeat that multiple times. And that's an entire process that's very good for some real mental health healing. So there are a lot of activities out there. You can volunteer to raise service dogs or to work with service dogs. You can volunteer at the local animal shelter. I know that our animal shelters are always looking for individuals to just come walk the dogs, right? Just come get the dogs out and walk them around and interact with them. Most animals, domesticated animals, want humans just as much as we as humans want them. So even if you don't have the ability to have an animal in your home, there are a lot of ways that you can get involved and get that oxytocin, lowering cortisol activity, frontal lobe firing, positive dopamine and serotonin pushes in your brain without having to worry about actually animal ownership. So you can look into those. And if you are someone who's listening to this podcast and you're like, absolutely, I agree with you, Julie, and I know of this, and this place, then do me a favor and put that in the comments. Share that with us. Share that resource. Maybe share the city that you're in and the resource that you have. I will be putting in the comments the equine therapy people that I have, that I know that you can actually travel and spend time there. There's a lot of those throughout the United States, which is where I'm filming from. And if you're in another country, then please share that as well. And if you are in another country, let me know what you have. A lot of the information that I shared was based on my location, but I do know we have a very international listenership. So let us know what country you're in And what resources do you have? Or what resources do you not have that you might like to start up? It might be a good volunteer activity for you. At any rate, that is this edition, ways that you can help to reduce stressors in your life and actually improve your mental health. Again, please always mention if you're going to make any changes in your patterns, or you want to make any changes in your daily activities that are connected to your therapy that you're under, or your counseling that you're under, be sure to discuss it with your healthcare professional first. Bring them the information, send them the podcast link, right? And ask them what they think, and work with your therapist or with your doctor and with your current program before you make any types of big changes. And know that there is help out there for you if you are someone who is suffering from any kind of stress, mental health challenges. There's a lot of help out there. We're just scratching the surface with the information that we share here. So if you have questions, be sure to shoot us an email. And on that note, our email, if you have questions, if you have suggestions for topics, if you have experiences that you want to share, then go ahead and send us an email, info@brainladyspeaker.com. The show is Brain Lady Speaks, but the email is Brain Lady Speaker. So info@brainladyspeaker.com. And let us know if you want if some of the references. We'll try to put it as many as we can, or as much as we can, in the show notes and down in the description, so that you have those access to those. But if you want more, or if you have more questions, then be sure to reach out, or just ask in the comments, and we'll keep an eye on the comments for you. And of course, I have a favor to ask of you. If you found this podcast interesting, give us a little bit of social media love, right? Share it out to the different platforms that you like, or to your sphere of influence. Give us a 5-star rating on your iHeart or iTunes. I'm trying to, what is the I one? iTunes, wherever you're listening to this with this at, then be sure to give us a thumbs up and share. We would love that. A lot of this information, Julie may ramble on a little bit, but the core information I think is very valuable, and it's good to share. So I would love it if you would do that for us. And if you have a suggestion, if you would like to be interviewed on the Brain Lady Speak show, I always love the conversations. If you would like me to interview somebody, maybe you heard somebody speak and you're like, oh, I think she'd be a great guest, then send us that email. You can also send those emails to Kelli, Kelli, Kelli at brainladyspeaker.com. She is our podcast liaison. She does all of the back-end producing, editing, all of that kind of stuff. So you can also reach out to her. And you can follow me on all the social media outlets. We are Brain Lady Julie. I'm Brain Lady Julie pretty much everywhere, whether it's Twitter or TikTok or what else am I on? LinkedIn, Facebook. It's always Brain Lady Julie. So I'd love to connect with you there, and you can always message me through those outlets as well. So hopefully this was interesting to you. Hopefully it was helpful to you, gave you some ideas. And go give your dog a hug. Go give your cat a little love and a kiss. And roll your shoulders back. Take a nice deep breath in. Go out there and simply enjoy every moment with your furry friends. Until next time.